President Trump welcomes Pastor Andrew Brunson to the White House following his release from Turkish custody. And for more details, we go now to One America's Neil W. McCabe live at the White House. Hi there, Neil. Good to see you again. Just moments ago, we all watched that very emotional meeting with the pastor and his family. We heard from the pastor himself, his family, and the president. What are some of your takeaways from that meeting in the Oval Office?
Well, that's absolutely right, Rachel. That just ended just about 10-15 minutes ago, as we saw here on the network. President Donald Trump was very gracious to Pastor Andrew Brunson and his family. And that Oval Office scene, you see the president is obviously on his way to Kentucky right now. So I apologize for the Marine One making its cameo live on One American News. But if you can still hear me, I'm just going to drive through and tell you that at that meeting, the president welcomed the North Carolina delegation, members of the Brunson family, and then, of course, there was Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State. The big takeaways for me was that when Pastor Brunson, when he was asked to speak, not only did he thank the president, but he also offered a prayer for the president. And in that prayer, 3 times, he asked the Lord to give President Trump wisdom. And it struck me as a very sort of Eastern Christian idea to talk about wisdom and what Brunson called supernatural wisdom. And you'll recall that great mosque in Istanbul was originally an imperial cathedral, a Christian church, and of Hagia Sophia, which of course translates to holy wisdom. Another thing I wanted to point out is sort of that easy atmosphere that you had with Mike Pompeo and Secretary of and the president. It's not that awkwardness that you always had with Rex Tillerson and Mike Pompeo. I don't think it's possible to overstate how that relationship between Pompeo and President Trump really makes American foreign policy just go so much easier when you don't have to worry if the Secretary of State and the President of the United States are on the same page. Also, I wanted to point out North Carolina Senator Richard Burr, one of the members of that delegation that the president asked to speak. Burr, of course, is the chairman of the Senate Intel Committee, and as the chairman of the Senate Intel Committee is really part of that ongoing investigation into the Russian collusion hoax. Another member of the Senate Intel Committee, Oklahoma Senator James Lankford, the president 3 times asked Lankford to speak. Lankford's kind of had an uneasy relationship with the president. He's been kind of resistant to sort of see himself or associate himself with the president. I don't want to call him Never Trump, but Lankford is one of the guys on Capitol Hill who's always sort of had his distance from the president. And so it was really interesting to see Lankford as sort of an ordained minister, member of the Senate Intel Committee, and of course very active in that movement to free Brunson. I also want to point out that you can't see it here, but to my right, the Secret Service have taped off that road in between Lafayette Park and the White House as a security measure. And roughly about 90 minutes ago, I was able to confirm with Secret Service that they picked up a suspicious character who was taking pictures of the gates and the fence. And I don't want to say that he's been arrested and charged for anything, but I will confirm to you that the Secret Service did pick up somebody who was acting in a suspicious way. And so that just sort of tells you that there's still some tension around this as you have this conflict between a Christian pastor and, of course, a Muslim nation like Turkey, Rachel.
Neil, all good points there. And during that prayer, the pastor led something that stood out to me as he prayed for perseverance, endurance, and courage to stand for the truth. And then he said, I ask that you protect the president from slander, from enemies, and those who would undermine, which was really interesting to me. But like you said, Neil, the president himself was very gracious to Brunson, actually thanking him for his strength and perseverance. And Brunson, he was also asked, what next? Will he stay on American soil? And Brunson simply answered, "We don't know what's ahead of us." Of course, Neil, one step at a time for him and his family. But switching gears, though, there was some discussion of the fate of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi. How is the president addressing that mysterious disappearance?
Yeah, Rachel, that was something that it's almost like that competing narrative. Everyone is very excited and happy about the return of Brunson, but at the same time, it's hard to ignore that this columnist or contributor to the Washington Post, Jamal Khashoggi, walked in to the Saudi embassy in Turkey and did not walk out. Certainly there are media reports that while he was in there, he left his iWatch on and synced to his iPhone that was held by his fiancée outside, and that she was recording what was reported to be his interrogation, his murder, and dismemberment, all very, very graphic and horrific. And yet, you know, there's that old principle in criminal law: if there is no body, there is no crime. The president said that he is very interested in what happened to Khashoggi, and he said if it comes to it, he will have a conversation with the King of Saudi Arabia, King Salman. And then Langsford again was sort of given the opportunity by the president to address this matter. Langsford said he was focused on not so much what we will do to Saudi Arabia, but he still wants to find out what happened to Khashoggi. The president also said that he received a letter from Khashoggi's fiancée, a letter that was addressed to the First Lady and the President. He called it a beautiful letter, and that he has invited the fiancée to the White House. And so this is very much an ongoing saga, and really a tragedy that's competing with the celebration of Brunson's return, Rachel.
All right, One America's Neil W. McCabe breaking down the details of that long-awaited journey home of American Pastor Andrew Brunson, who was in detention in Turkey for 2 years. Of course, the mysterious disappearance of a Saudi journalist kind of looming over this homecoming, as there are still many unanswered questions there. Thank you so much, Neil, for that live report.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One America News on YouTube. And call your cable provider and kindly demand that One America News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.